So your mindset is, it's not negotiable. I pay my tithe and I pay my future self, because what it costs today, that's not how much it's gonna cost in the future. And you wanna be prepared right now. I need you to understand, estate planning doesn't happen when you have money or when you have millions. It starts with valuing what you have right now. We are seeing a large amount of young people getting sick and passing away, and sometimes even outliving their parents. And it's a little shocking. So if you are in your 20s or 30s, or even if you're in high school and college, this video is definitely for you. Please do not think that you need to have a large estate in order to have an estate plan. I remember I was in college and I was living in the dorms, and somehow I got sick. I mean, very sick, to the point where I could barely breathe at night. I had to drive myself to the emergency room at 1 o'clock in the morning. They gave me a little bit of medication and I went back to my dorm. It happened again the next day, but it was so bad. I was in so much pain. My throat was swollen and they couldn't figure out what exactly was wrong. It was so bad, I started to look around my dorm and I said, wow, if something were to happen to me, where would my Jordans go? Who would get all my purses? Who would get my outfits? I know my cousins would argue over this. And I started writing down where I would want my laptop to go. And then as a creative, I used to write poetry. I used to have all these performances. I said, what happens to all of that intellectual property? And this is where I started to shift and get more serious. Even though I was in college, I had valuable assets that I had put on the internet that were highly engaging. I had digital products, I had services that I was doing, and I started to think, what happens to that? If they found me in my dorm room, who would they know to call? I know that we have records in our system when we enroll in the dorms, but do I have a sheet somewhere in my dorm where they can call someone quickly? I started to take a step back and I started writing things out, and this is sometimes what people call a poor man's will. But the point is, you want to have something. You want to have a system. You want to have a mindset that says, I am valuable, I protect my assets, and I also protect my family. And so when I actually got into financial services, especially as a creative, these are the things that I want you to understand with what you can implement and do today. When you look at wealth from a holistic standpoint, there are 3 key areas. And the first 2 are the main 2 that people think about, but it's the last one that impacts your family directly the most. So it's not just about having money and building it. You want the wealth to last throughout generations. So that's going to require the financial planning, the legal documents that protect your assets and make sure it goes to the right people. That's your estate planning, and then family legacy planning. The first step in building wealth is really looking at financial planning. This is where you're looking at your accounts, your taxes, your portfolio, your investments, really looking at your strategy. All the millionaires that I work with, they have a long-term plan, meaning they're not really selling stocks here and there or doing a lot of day trading. They're invested in bonds and ETFs, exchange traded funds. Now think of an ETF and a mutual fund, which is, they're very similar, but there are some key differences. Think of an ETF as, instead of going to Bed Bath & Beyond and just buying one lotion, they have a whole gift basket, which has so many different products, similar scents, lotion, body scrub, loofah. You pay one price for the basket. It's more than just the single lotion, but there are so many more things inside that you didn't have to choose. It was already there, and you pay for that one basket. That's what an ETF and a mutual fund are essentially. The lotion and the goodies inside are companies and how well they're performing, and your ability to buy a lot of these different shares of these companies at one price in one ETF or one mutual fund. Now, the difference between ETF and mutual fund, a mutual fund, they have a minimum. So they may say it's $3,000 minimum to get into this mutual fund. With an ETF, there is no minimum. That's the benefit of working with an ETF. Also, with a mutual fund, there is a limit. There's a time specific when you can place your trade for a mutual fund. And it's usually, I think it's like around 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. With an ETF, you're not limited and restricted to just that time. You can trade and purchase throughout the day. So if you are starting to look at your financial plan, if you're starting to build your financial plan, you want to think long-term, and your mindset is, I have to pay my future self. Everyday millionaires means these are people who, they didn't just inherit all of this money. They don't have like a lavish business. These are people who over time made long-term decisions that benefited them. They allowed their money to work for them. And a lot of that is going to be in the stock market with ETFs or mutual funds. And bonds. Bonds is another thing. Bonds is like you lending money to the government. So when you see these parks and these libraries and you buy a bond, go ahead and just start snapping your finger and say, everybody, you're welcome, because I purchased that bond that allowed the government to go ahead and build this library for you, okay? That's a long-term instrument. So bonds, ETFs, and the nice thing about ETFs is you can get fractional shares. So if the ETF is $200 and you're like, I only have 50, you're gonna get $50 worth of what's in that ETF. You're still getting something. So your mindset is, it's not negotiable. I pay my tithe and I pay my future self, because what it costs today, that's not how much it's gonna cost in the future. And you wanna be prepared right now. So bonds, ETFs, mutual funds, and REITs, those are real estate investment trusts. So when you see a grocery store, when you see a hospital, the property that they are on, they have to pay rent for that property to be, operating on that property. And so that's real estate. Instead of, buying a home and, fixing it up, you can still own real estate through REITs. So I would encourage you to, one, open a brokerage account. A brokerage is different from a bank. A brokerage is a firm that actually gives you the ability to buy and sell stock. You can't do that at a regular bank. So open an account, research, but most importantly, ask someone that you know, hey, I am new to investing. I want to be successful. You were the first person who came to my mind. Can you share with me the best place for me to start investing? One, whoever you ask that to, they're gonna feel flattered, they're gonna feel honored, and they're gonna wanna help you. They're gonna tell you the best brokerage for your age, they're gonna tell you the best ETFs, the best REITs, they're gonna give you the game. And remember, this can be someone in your family. This is how we prepare for legacy. Passing information down. So, we're looking at your financial planning. So that's your investments, taxes, your portfolio. You have a financial plan. I always set X amount of dollars, X amount of percentage for my future self. Now, the second step is that we also look at your estate plan. Your estate plan is focused on your legal documents. So this is your trust, your will, healthcare powers of attorney, medical directives. Those are the 4 essential documents that you want to have in order, especially if you plan on getting married. Now, some of you may say, I don't really have a lot of assets, I don't need a trust. And you may not, but consider a trust if you have a child who has special needs or substance abuse. A trust is really helpful if you want guardrails, where you want to assign the money and how it's specifically used for. If you feel like any of your spouse or any of your children are not good with money, having a trust is really helpful to dictate how that money can be dispersed. So that's just something you want to keep in your mind. Okay, in the future, I may end up having a trust. And so you want to get a will or even a poor man's will, and you can actually look that up on a platform called FormSwift. And no, this video is not sponsored yet. FormSwift is an amazing platform where they have built in, fill in legal documents. You pay a one-time fee, and when you come in, you can type what you're looking for. So you can type in will, and you would plug and play. You would put in all of your information. Once you put all of that information in, you're gonna go and get that document notarized. A notary, especially as someone who is a notary is somebody who is commissioned by the state or in the county to affirm and confirm someone's identity through their signature. So this means if you come, you can go to a bank, you can go to FedEx or UPS. You always just want to call in advance and see if they have a notary there. At a bank, usually they don't charge you, but FedEx and UPS might charge you. And then there are also independent notaries that you can reach out to as well. But the notary is going to essentially watch you sign the document. They're gonna look at your driver's license, they're gonna look at your passport, they're gonna look at some form of ID, and then they're gonna watch you sign the document to affirm it was you who signed it, and then they're gonna put a stamp on that document that shows this was notarized, a professional witness that this person did it, this is legal and valid. So when you go to get it notarized, never sign any paperwork in advance. Always wait till you get in front of the notary. They'll watch you do it and then stamp it. So that's a great place to start. Now, if you're somebody who, is not around family, you don't trust your family, it's when you want to start really considering getting a healthcare power of attorney, and you can look that up on FormSwift as well. A healthcare power of attorney means in the event you become incapacitated, let's say in a coma or there's a really bad car accident, you can't think for yourself, you can't function. This person has the authority to make certain decisions around your healthcare. This is someone who also execute your wishes and desires. So a great example is DNR, which stands for do not resuscitate. You are someone who's going to want to think about, do you want DNR on file? Meaning, do you want to be resuscitated or not? Because sometimes something can happen where the doctor's like, hey, something's happening. Do you want us to try or do you want us to let them go? If you put resuscitate, your healthcare power of attorney is going to come and they're going to show that documentation like, hey, yes, please resuscitate. Also, we want to make sure that the pastor comes in and anoints them before this. You can put what you want in there. You can put your values in there. And so these are the things, especially if you travel a lot, if you travel across the country, if you have some trust issues with certain people, you want a healthcare power of attorney. I had a client, her healthcare power of attorney was not her husband. It was her best friend. She trusted her best friend to make those type of decisions. And you know why? She said her husband does get overwhelmed and she didn't want to put that stress on him. She wanted someone who had a logical and sound mind. So sometimes having these documents and assigning anyone you trust is not necessarily an insult. Who do you think would be the best person to fulfill this role? So you can execute that right now. Your healthcare power of attorney, you can get that from FormSwift and fill that in, a will. And remember, you can always update these documents. Especially you want to update and review your documents every 5 to 7 years, or if there's a major life event. So if you have a baby, if you get married, car accident, sickness, those are major life events. Now, the third step in building wealth without millions is that you need family legacy planning. And this focuses on communication, education, and preparation. Now, let's say you have all this planning, you have the money, you're moving forward, you're investing, you have your beneficiaries listed. Beneficiaries are the people who receive the money when the account holder dies. So right now, for homework, you want to make sure you go to every bank account, every brokerage account, and make sure you have beneficiaries listed. You usually need their first name, last name, and social security number. So if that's your kids, list your kids. If your children are under 18, have another adult listed as well, as another account owner, but you're gonna need help with navigating funds to a child. So just keep that in mind. So we wanna make sure that you're looking at your beneficiaries, you're making sure that's up to date, you're educating your family on your desires. You are preparing for adversity, not the easy day. This is how you feel more confident. This is how you feel more prepared. This is how you travel the world knowing that I've protected my family. Something to also think about is, do you have long-term care insurance? Do you have insurance that has living benefits? Living benefits, these are the type of insurance benefits that if something were to happen to you and you could not function, you could not do daily tasks, you had a terminal illness, you would get the payout amount. And it would not only just cover your living expenses, if somebody, especially a family member, were taking care of you, it would be able to supplement their income as well. See, even if something unfortunate happens, you want it to be an inconvenience, not an emergency. And a lot of people are panicked in emergencies because they're not prepared. Is this meaning you need to constantly think about the worst thing? No, that's why you hire professionals to help you. This is why you're watching videos and listening to things like this to help you about what you need to think about. So you're preparing your family, you're educating them, making sure you're building their financial skills. And most importantly, it's not just about having money and building it. You want the wealth to last throughout generations. So that's going to require the financial planning, the legal documents that protect your assets and make sure it goes to the right people. That's your estate planning. And then family legacy planning, communicating your values, your vision, educating your current family, preparing them for what's to come. And I just want to leave you with this. When you purchase car insurance, you're not purchasing car insurance because you're about to go hit a car and get in an accident. You're not even purchasing car insurance because you're thinking that you're going to get in a car accident. You purchase car insurance when it's required, but also just in case someone hits you, you're covered. Just in case you hit someone, you're covered. Just in case there's a natural disaster and nobody hit you and a tree falls on your car, you're covered. When you operate with these 3 steps, when you prepare for legacy, it's like car insurance. You're covered. I hope this was very helpful. I hope you take some practical steps, getting your poor man's will, your beneficiaries up to date, asking questions about ETFs, mutual funds, REITs, setting up your brokerage account, looking at the assets that you have, and especially if you're creative, how can you get all of your intellectual property built into your estate plan, in your poor man's will or in your trust? How can you get your creative skill sets documented legally? Let me know if you want a video on that. Let me know if you want a training on that. But most importantly, we don't wait, we prepare. See you in the next episode.